Hello, welcome to GTA 5 Enhanced, and having a little chat with my friend Corbs, who has a channel called Corbology. Yeah, say hello, Corbs.
Hi, that's me. I'm Korb of Korbology, here to talk to David about doing what he does because I am not in the industry and he is.
Cool. Yeah, excellent. That's all good, isn't it? We're going to have a nice little chat. Yeah. It's an interesting area, isn't it? And I do slightly worry sometimes because it's been so long since, I was in Corb's position, like 17 years or so. Um, and, advice from one generation to another is often full of shit, frankly, isn't it? Things change so much. So I will endeavor to, you know, give my best advice,
Yeah.
such as it
Well,
is.
actually, I was wondering regarding that, what sort of your pipeline into the industry was.
Yeah, it's always an interesting tale, isn't it? But everyone you meet who's in the industry, they've always got an interesting story of how it all happened, isn't it? Because it invariably starts with loving games. And, it did with
Yeah.
me. And I was sort of, I kind of like, I didn't do that great at school. I kind of messed around a bit. I did well in art, unsurprisingly, I suppose. But everything else was kind of very mediocre. Um, and I should say actually, we're making our way to Mount Chiliad for a nice little walk in the mountains as well. That's where we're going. So I'll try not to crash the helicopter while I talk, which usually happens. But yeah, and I was
That's all
doing
right.
all
Just
sorts of
makes for
jobs.
good drama.
Exactly, exactly. I know. I don't end up at the hospital again. Yeah, it's just slight hassle, slight hassle. But yeah,
Right.
I didn't do much. I mean, I had jobs here and there. I ran a fish and chip shop for a while. Managed that, which was interesting. And then I ended
Right.
up as a picture framer. Sort of, and then after a while, I just realized that, like, man, I'm in my mid 20s and I got no money. I've got, this job's going nowhere because it paid like hardly anything, even though it was quite interesting, framing pictures and sometimes a little bit of art restoration, tidying up a lot of beaten up old watercolors and stuff, which was quite nice, But yeah, it just didn't pay at all, and had no prospects really. So one day I thought, right, well, oh my God, I've got to spend my life working, have I? This seems like a really crappy situation. You've got to sort of just work the whole life almost. And I thought, right, I've got to get a job that is like as close to a hobby as I can possibly get. I've got to do this somehow. And then I thought, right,
Yeah.
well, what's my hobby? Well, computer games, isn't it? And so I thought, right, well, how do I do that then? How do I play games for a living? And I thought, well, it's not that much. There's not that many jobs actually playing games for a living. I don't want to be a games tester because I'm terrible at testing games, and I don't want to keep playing the same thing over and over again. And I thought, well, hang on, art. I could do art, or I could make games. Maybe I could sort of learn to program stuff like that. And then I thought, right, yep, good. And I found a university course that was computer games technology, but I didn't have the
Okay.
qualifications. So I spent the next 2 years doing night school, getting English and maths, just to get to university. This is like the ultimate long range plan, isn't it? Um,
Yeah. All while continuing to do framing.
yeah, yeah. All the while I was carrying on with the day job, and then 2 nights a week I'd be doing like night school, and I don't know. I was driven. I was really focused at that point. I was like, man, this is my plan. And when I get a plan, I'm on fire generally. I'm like all in. Everything else
Yeah.
is secondary to a plan that I have. Sometimes that's kind of a bad thing because other things get neglected. But in this instance, I was in my sort of mid 20s, and I had no family commitments or anything, so it was all in.
Yeah.
And then I went to university, 4 year course at that, and I did pretty well. Came out with a first, which is like the top marks, because again I was
Yeah.
driven, you know, um, and then yes, through I don't know. I mean, even then when you do well on a computer games course, there's no guarantee you're going to get into the industry at all. In fact, most people who do games courses don't get into the industry because there's only so many places. Even back then, nearly 20 years ago, there was only so many, places available in
Yeah,
studios and stuff. And, a few
yeah,
people
probably
went,
fewer studios, but also fewer people looking for work at that time.
yeah, maybe so. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it depends, doesn't it, on how motivated you are, I guess. That at the end of the day, I mean, I always believe like you can, you can pretty much do anything you want if you want it enough. It depends on how
Yeah.
much you are willing to sort of put off to achieve its aim. If you want to be an astronaut bad enough, I dare say you probably could do. So, as long as you're not like 50 when you think of it. I think my days of going to be an astronaut are gone. But if
No,
you're
no,
young,
that's up to the progress of technology. It could still happen.
well, yeah, exactly. Even then, Corbs, yeah, you're right. So, yeah, I at uni, I managed to sort of bag my first games job at Traveller's Tales as a
Oh, okay.
games what was it gameplay programmer on Indiana Jones, Lego Indiana Jones, and I was
Oh, right.
amazed. I was frankly amazed, because I was like, really, wow. You actually that man, yeah, okay, great. I'll take that, and I was very unconfident, um, you
Yeah, well,
know.
so it wasn't an internship or anything. They just hired you outright for programming, even though you were trying to go for art.
Well, no, because the games course was focused on programming. So I started out as a programmer.
Ah,
Perhaps I wasn't clear there, was I? No. But yes, somehow, I don't know how, I don't know why, Cobbs, even to this day, I think it's slightly odd that I decided to do a programming degree rather than an art degree. Um, I don't know. Kind of a
yeah.
massive folly in some ways, but it well
Well,
worked out. And
yeah.
it's
Maybe it was. Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say maybe because it was not as competitive.
perhaps so, but although even then it felt competitive, it felt like it was a bit of a long shot even getting into getting a games job. It was always like, you know, will I get into it? What will I do? A bit of a gamble, really. Um, but I don't know. I mean, yeah, somehow it all worked out. And I mean, other people on the course, they went over to Canada. I think there was a couple of guys got jobs at BioWare. Some got jobs at Rare,
Hmm.
and don't know. I kind of lost track of everyone else. I got an interview at Rare. In fact, quite a few of us all went over to this sort of setup where Rare had kind of set this thing up in Manchester where like a few of us went over and did all these tests and stuff. And then he put us on camera to say why you would want a job at Rare and all this sort of stuff, which I thought was really underhanded because like they didn't tell us, they sprang it on us, and like a lot of us they're not the most camera savvy people. So suddenly you're like, oh, and hey, tell the camera why you want to work at Rare. And I was like, because I like
Yeah.
games, And I was like, oh, you beasts, So I didn't get that job, and
Yeah, that's strange. Were they going to show it to executives or something? That sounds like it's more of a like an actor's audition.
exactly. I know. I thought it was wholly inappropriate, and Rare. If you're listening, I didn't like that. Don't do that again, please. And I don't know. I mean, they're doing quite well out of Sea of Thieves, aren't they? They're all fine. They're all good, but I thought they were overly harsh on, you know, the next generation of developers. I thought that was a bit cruel. But, I
Right.
mean, as opposed to, Travel's Tales, which were chilled as hell. They were so chilled out, and really nice as well. I really appreciated, they were really kind to, me fresh out of university, uh, being very unconfident and not knowing what was going on. You know, it was great.
Yeah. Do you know how big the studio was when you got hired?
Travel's Tales was, I think, approximately 200 people. I think this was before they acquired. Oh God, I want to say Fusion, but that might be the wrong thing. There was another games company, and then they moved into the floor below us. Um, that was just before being acquired by Warner Brothers. Um, but yeah, it was quite small back then, you know, and they were just wrapping up the original Lego Star Wars saga, and we went on to Lego Indiana Jones, and I did a bit on Lego Batman as well, which was running concurrently, um, which was all pretty cool. But then I
Yeah.
would I got friendly with the artists, and I would always be looking over to see what the artists were doing, and I was like, man, that looks cool. That looks better than what I'm trying to do, you know. And I was like plugging away at the programming, just feeling a bit overwhelmed and out of my depth, you know. But I was doing the I don't know if you've played Lego Indiana Jones, but Indy can dig. He's got a
Oh,
little
I
spade,
have.
doesn't he? And he digs, and you press the button, and it'll speed up a bit or slow down depending on how fast. And so that was my
Oh,
system
yeah.
there. That I mean, just hook it into animations, you know. But that I set up the dig and the fix bit where he's got a spanner, and Indy fixes stuff too. And I'm always proud of that. I love that. Indy's dig.
Yeah, no. That's good. That's
It's
so you
great.
were even though you were doing programming, it was still with kind of I don't know if you'd call that animation or tech programming, but
Well,
it's
in a
related to
way,
something that you're
it
visually
was
seeing.
just I was just hooking into the animations that the animators had done, you know. So it's really just like, referencing the animation to play, and speed it up or slow it down depending on input from the controller and stuff. Does that, and I did quite a bit of sort of waypointing for the non-player character. Say if you're playing on your own, the other little characters, just putting waypoints down so that they can navigate the environments and stuff, which was
Right.
pretty cool, really satisfying stuff, you know. But I realize I don't want to take up all the video about me, but I'll abbreviate it from now. I got friendly with the artists. I liked what they were doing, and I thought I'd rather do that. So I left Traveler's Tales, took a year out. I learned Maya, learned everything I could about game art, environments. I did a bit of animation, stuff like that. And then again, I got lucky. I did a demo which Bizarre Creations had up on their website. They'd very helpfully provided a little demo package that you could download and then just do it. And it was like a New York City block, very similar to one you've done, Corb, on your channel, I believe. Um, and yeah, it was
Oh,
just
yeah,
sort of
my building.
exactly, yeah, and it was almost identical to that, really, the same thing, all the same stuff, and it was just make it and submit it, and I did that, and I got an interview, and it was for a contract work at first, working on Blur, and after a couple of months of contract working for them, they decided to offer me the like a permanent position, which was brilliant. I was like, wow, that's great, amazing. I've got a job as an artist now, and
Yeah.
then brilliant place to work, lovely. Couple of years there, then Activision decided to trash the place and shut it down, which is very
Oh,
sad. Thanks Activision for that,
yeah.
dudes.
Wait, you said you were there when it happened?
Yeah. I was there till the last day when we all left. I left with a box of a good few copies of Project Gotham Racing, which were just
Oh, yeah.
going because they had stacks of them, and a lot of good friends, and we all filtered off into different places, But just prior to that, Rockstar were looking for artists, and I'd applied for them, and I met with the art director and I don't know what his job title was. I guess he was art director number two in a way, maybe associate art director. And we met in a pub in Liverpool, uh, and had a nice chat about environment art and stuff. And then they offered me the job, and I just thought, my God, I just got a job at Rockstar, and that was the easiest interview I've ever done. It was brilliant. And then I moved up to Edinburgh, me and my then girlfriend, and 12 years later, um, having worked on GTA 5 and RDR2 and GTA 6, I was like, right, it's time for something new, and that was me done in 2023, summer of 2023 when I left, um, and yeah, and now I do golf stuff, golf clubs, golf courses, and stuff like that, and YouTube and things. So it's all worked out really
Yeah.
well, um, and I'm
Yeah.
you
Sounds like
know.
it.
Yeah, and that's me, you know, and I'm more than happy to, you know, try and help people if they require it, you know. I mean, I'm not sure how valid my experience is. It's just an experience, you know. So, yeah, you
Yeah.
know.
Well,
uh,
that makes me wonder, from your perspective as somebody on the inside, how do you think the industry has changed since you started?
Yeah, good question, Cobb. Yeah, it's changed a lot, hasn't it? I mean, it's changed a lot for the worse in many ways. Oh, a fellow walker. Look, there we go. Hello. Hello, fellow
Oh, hello.
walker. I think maybe they're trying to get into the industry as well. They can listen in to us, you know.
Right.
Yeah, it's changed. I mean,
Eavesdropping.
you know, all these layoffs over the last few years has just like gutted the industry, haven't they? I think it's,
Yeah.
you know, it's having an impact on the sort of games that are getting made. We've lost a lot of institutional knowledge. You know, a lot of us, and kind of me in a kind of way. I've kind of moved to an adjacent industry in like niche simulation stuff. So I'm kind of out of AAA, you know. So they've lost me, and many like me, you know, who've like been in there for decades, and we you know we left because it's too unstable. You know, it's like I don't want that stress in my life of knowing, you know, even if I make a successful game or help make a successful game, are we going to get laid off anyway? You know, to push up the numbers for shares and stuff like that. You know, all that bullshit.
I've wondered if the layoffs that have been going on in the past few years have been due to COVID, or if you think it's more of a cultural shift, or something. Is it
Yeah.
more the economic forces on games, or has something else entirely out of my like my scope of knowledge changed as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's like everything. Nothing's in isolation, isn't it? And I think it's a bit of everything, really. COVID certainly, yeah, had its impact, but I think that's an easy excuse to, you know, lay it at the feet of COVID. You know, it's because of COVID, and I don't think it's that at all. What am I saying? I think it is partly that, but a lot of it is poor management, um, expectations that things will just keep going on and on the way they are, not adapting to changing industry conditions. Um, I think that like finances have been going crazy, haven't they? You know, and I think that it's just money, 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 isn't it? Everything's got to keep going up and up and up, and that is having its effect across the whole globe of, you know, everything, isn't it? But you know, we can't live in a global society where everything has to keep going up and up and up. I mean, you just can't do it, can you? You can't have an ever increasing production across everything all the time. You know, you can't always make more
Yeah.
than the last game every time, or you close the studio down if you don't. You know, all that pressure is there. You know, everything's got to be mega successful. It can't just be successful. So all these have their impact, you know, and it creates a massively risk averse industry. Um, and, you know, so you've got to just keep climbing up and up and up. And, you know, we're getting to the top of the ladder, I think, and there's not that many rungs. So something's got to give, isn't it? And so the easiest thing to give, sadly, in many industries are people. Um, so massive layoffs, you know, you save a lot of money doing that. Your biggest expense is people in any industry. You know, labor costs more than anything, doesn't it? So it's easy to save money that way, sadly. And
Yeah.
so I think a lot of it is that.
Well, the interesting thing is, even though there are all these layoffs, one of the things that I keep hearing as somebody who's not in yet is that that's okay. Don't worry. There are all sorts of newer, smaller sorts of businesses that you'll be able to join as well. But uh, the concerning thing is, again, like we were talking about earlier, just how many of us are also gunning for those. And I
Yeah,
wonder if like the number of people have gone up, and maybe the number of studios has also gone up, but there is a limited number of people who buy games to support us, like a certain size of the industry, I suppose.
yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, there's I don't know numbers. I don't know whether there's more indie studios or less. I think that it's really rare to find a truly indie studio independent from venture capital. Nearly all of the new studios that start up have got injections of cash from investment, which creates its own pressures. I've just found a little quad bike. Look at that there. I didn't see that coming up. Nice. Um,
It's a
but
miracle.
but
Somebody
yeah,
lost it just for you.
yeah, maybe that other walker. But I'm not going to get that because I'm enjoying this walk. It's lovely just walking the mountains there. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know, Cobbs. I mean, it's a complex thing, isn't it? I mean, I'd like to see a lot more indie studios climb out of the ashes of AAA, let's say, because no one can afford AAA except a very small few number now, and they're all owned by Sony or Microsoft. It's getting ever
Yeah.
fewer and fewer. Um, and yeah, I mean, I wonder what the percentage or like what the numbers are of people wanting to get into the industry now versus 20 years ago. I've no idea, to be honest. I mean, in my mind, I keep thinking like, who's going to want to get into the industry now with all these layoffs? But it's still a massively popular area, and just in like software development in general, has seen many layoffs. It's not just the games industry, is it? So, everything's kind of leveling up, well, leveling down, I guess, the same way. So, I guess games is still very appealing, isn't it? Rather than database
Yeah.
programming or,
Well, yeah, I
website
could speak
design.
for myself. Like in my own case, I would say the decision to uh, aim for this industry as a goal is more so than because we all know that it's not the most stable or profitable industry as a worker in the world. We've all heard stories of exploitation and all these different horror stories of like company culture and harassment, things like that. We
Yeah.
all know the risks, but even so, I think people that are drawn to this industry uh, just really want to work with people that they can relate to and who care about things that they care about because we all could just go into finance and work with people with like business majors who are making a lot of money. They might even be very nice people, but we don't connect with them in that same way. And so for
Mm.
me, I think that's really what I'm aiming for is looking into the industry as a lifestyle decision rather than a economic decision.
I think that's a wise decision, Cobbs. Yeah, that's one thing that has stayed with me from the games industry is that, like, say you compare it to, like, I have friends who went into finance. Um, much, they've got much more money than I have, but the environment that they work in is very competitive, and a little bit backstabby, or a lot backstabby, and they're
Yeah.
they're competing against each other for their bonuses, their projects, even how quick they're doing stuff. It's massively pressurized and quite an unhealthy environment, like for mental health, certainly. Whereas in the games industry, it's always been like everyone helps each other. No one's competing against anyone else. You're not competing. You're working with and helping the people that you're working with. That's probably the best thing about the games industry. Because everyone is there to help each other. Because that's how the game gets better. That's how you make a good game. Is that you're sharing knowledge and you're helping everyone else. Because everyone else helps everyone else to get better. So in that
Yeah.
sense, it's a great environment to work, and a lot better than many industries in that way. So yeah, Cobbs. I think if you
Yeah.
go into it with that mindset, I think you'll be all right. Um, eyes wide open, but knowing that it's generally 99% of people in the games industry are great, they're amazing.
Regarding all of this stuff then, because you've been speaking on your worries for young people trying to get in to the industry.
Mm.
Uh, if you were doing it today, how do you think you would do it?
Yeah, that's a question, isn't it? I would certainly not go to university. I think university is a great thing to do if you can afford it. But the financial burden it places on you nowadays is not worth it. You're never going to make that money back, and you'll be crippled with student debt well into your middle age. I mean, I only paid my student debt off when I was 40. Yay,
Oh
great, isn't
yeah.
it that? And I think in America it's even worse, isn't it? The UK, I was very fortunate that I got my course paid for me as an adult going back to university for the first time. That was a brilliant thing about the UK. We have a lot of excellent things like that, not to mention healthcare.
Yeah.
Brilliant. And yeah, I got my course
That's
paid for
great.
me. That was amazing. But I still had a massive student debt because I wasn't working while I was at uni. And, I had three loans from three different banks at the same time, which was just like, so I came out with it about £30,000 in debt. Um, and yeah, it took me till I was 40 to pay it off. And my wife's still got a student loan, you know, which is probably never going to pay off. But yes, at university, I wouldn't bother. Don't bother. If you're going for
Yeah.
art, then, paint and draw. Paint and draw. Traditional media, I would highly recommend it. It gives you a great sense of composition and what works and what doesn't. And it's a core skill. But then just pick up software, just like get Blender. It's free. Make stuff in Blender. Make whatever, if you gravitate toward objects or hard surface modeling, then just make stuff, whatever. Make a toothbrush, make a cup, make a pan, make a chicken, roast chicken dinner, make a phone, whatever. It doesn't matter. If you want to gravitate toward landscapes, make landscapes. Go out in nature,
Yeah.
look at landscapes. Draw landscapes outside in nature. Go back home, make them in Blender. Get the, I don't know, just texture them up. Probably learn Substance Painter. That's a great tool, industry standard. But yeah, it's nothing special really. Just do the stuff that companies will want from you generally. And every company's got their own tools and their own ways of doing things. But it doesn't matter if you don't know Maya or 3D Max. If you only know Blender, the fact that you can make stuff with 3D software is what's important. Anyone can learn what button does what in what software. That's not a lot of companies will like on paper when you're looking at the application process, it's like, oh my God, they want all this stuff. They want Unreal. They want like 3D Max. Oh, but I know Blender, and all this stuff. It doesn't matter. They're just putting that down to see what they can catch, as long as you've got a good
Yeah.
portfolio, that's the best you can do. And that should be enough. That's my
Okay.
that's
So you
my
don't
advice
think
in a
there's
nutshell. Yeah.
you don't think there's any point in maybe specializing towards something that is more hireable in terms of skills or anything like that? Because for myself, for example, I really enjoy doing buildings, but I've done a lot of work on also foliage and landscapes and things like that because I know that
Mm.
that's most of what comprises game worlds. And that is probably the more hireable trait because of that. But do you think I should
Mm.
focus more on exclusively buildings if that's really where my passion lies?
Yeah, that's a good point, isn't it? I think you've got to balance being a generalist with the fact that you might end up as a specialist in it. Like I ended up as a terrain artist, but I got my first art job with a building. So I think it's definitely good to at least do both for a portfolio. Um, but if you really want to do architecture, um, then you're probably not going to be that happy doing landscapes in a game, or vice versa, are you? And so it's all very well getting a job doing this, but you got to think about like, are you going to be happy doing it too? It's not just like, what can I do for this company? You got to think about like, this is my life. I want to do something that I enjoy too. I'm not just going to bend over backwards for every company and mold myself to them. You've got to be true to yourself as well. And, you know, like I don't particularly like doing buildings. I mean, it's fine. It's all good. But, I just, the thing I like is landscapes, like this here,
Yeah.
I just want to be out in nature, walking outside in mountains generally in life. And so that's what I really enjoyed making, and it showed, and that's why I got hired.
Yeah. Well, actually, what I've sort of tried to do with all of this is so that I have the full understanding of how to make every type of thing I might need to or want to make, is I try to include, if I'm doing something that, doesn't really excite me, I include what does excite me in some way, where if I'm doing a landscape, I'll add a tower onto it or something like that, so that I'm getting to mix these things together.
Yeah.
But
That's efficient
yeah,
as well. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
Well,
goddamn.
so the other thing I was wondering, because you're saying essentially learn to make art, is if you're at the point where you do know how to make the art, and I'm not talking about anybody in particular, but if you know how to make the art and you are then trying to get into the industry, would you just probably go about this by applying directly to companies online with your CV, or do you think you would have any sort of sneaky back ways in that you would try to differentiate yourself?
Uh, well, if you know someone at a games company, very often companies will offer referral bonuses to employees. So, if you're in a very lucky position that you know someone who works at, whatever studio, um, then, let them know, make it known that you're looking. And if that person is happy to put you forward, that's probably the best case scenario, I would say. Um, because the studio likes to hire someone who comes recommended, and if they like that
Yeah,
person who works at that company and they're recommending somebody, it's a fairly likely that you might get an interview. That's a good route if you can do it, but not everyone has that inroad, do they? You know, so
yeah,
the other thing is like recruiters, yeah, that's a good route to go through a recruitment. Like, there's various games focused recruiters, like what is it, Datascope here in the UK, Amicus, but there'll be loads of them wherever you are, um, or imagine there might be anyway. But other than that, yeah, a lot of games companies will welcome direct applications too. You know, I mean, I would try any and all inroads that you can. But yeah, I'd say like every studio will probably have a work with us sort of route on their website where you can submit CVs and portfolios and stuff. Um, and
yeah,
if they're hiring for a position, then that's again you're more likely to get a response. If they're doing a speculative, which are fine, do a speculative. But if they are say hiring for environment artist or props artist or whatever, then if you're applying for that position, you know that they're actively looking. So that's a good way, just yeah, throw your stuff out there, But you've got to have a portfolio. Yeah, that's like a really important part of it. Like, you know, get a get together a nice portfolio of your work that you're happy that shows off your skills and interests as well, and shows a part of you as well, and that's the best you can do for any job application, isn't it? Really, um, that and
yeah.
luck. I mean,
Okay.
luck plays a big part in anything. It's like no one is no one is an island, are they? It's like you get your luck and opportunities at the universe's whim, don't you? And you've got to sort of be mindful of that. You've got to be at the right place at the right time. And I've been pretty fortunate in being at the right place at the right time a number of times. It could have all have gone so differently if the universe would have just played out slightly differently as well. So you know, uh,
Yeah. Okay, so basically don't focus too much on trying to apply to a certain type of company or a certain size of company or uh, you know, anything like that. Just essentially keep applying, and if your portfolio is good enough, you'll get in.
exactly, yeah. And don't forget, applications aren't a one shot. You can apply to a company however many times you want. And sometimes a company might notice that as well. Like you apply one year and your stuff, they might think, he needs to improve. or she needs to improve. 6 months or a year down the line, you can apply again. There's nothing stopping you, and they might notice that, like, oh wow, they've got better. And that shows something too. Tenacity, it all makes a difference. If you really want to do it, keep doing it. Keep trying, and don't give up. And that will have its effect. And the more you do, why can't I look through my telescope here? I'm trying to. And the more the more you do practice, then the better you'll get. And in a way, it sounds quite simple, doesn't it? I mean, it is simple, but it just requires a bit of luck as well, and just putting yourself in a position to have that luck find you as well,
Right.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for answering all those questions. I do have a final big question.
Ooh, right.
If that's okay. That
Hit me with it, Corbs. Yeah, because
it'll stop the show.
Yeah, I know. My work beckons soon as well. But hit me with the big question.
All right. So the big one, because it's directly relevant to my own work.
Oh, good.
What do you listen to while you work?
What do I listen to? This is a big question. That's what. Well, yeah, that can keep your mind sane, can't it? Oh, I go through phases. So, like, I often will be listening to audiobooks. Like, this is the thing, right? When I was a programmer, I can't listen to audiobooks because your mind is focused on, often numbers and logic, and I can't split my brain between, like, programming and listening to a book. So it's music all the way for that. But art is completely different. It's a really fascinating phenomenon how the brain works, isn't it? Like, I could sit all day, and I did sit all day doing, parts of this view, and I've listened to audiobooks. I thought felt very lucky to have audiobooks, because they didn't really exist, like, 30 years ago, did they? Audiobooks are great nowadays. And I just sit and listen to stories while I'm doing art because it's great. So I'd have phases of that, or I'd have phases of music, maybe radio as well, stuff like that. I'd have my favorite little channels, or podcasts as well. I love a long form podcast, lots of super interesting podcasts out there, aren't there? So I had many a happy day. Just I'll be like going into work and be like, I'm gonna sort of put my book on or listen to my latest episode of a podcast or something, and do my modeling and all that sort of stuff. So that was.
Well, any final recommendations then for a band, podcast, book?
Oh, that's a big question, isn't it? Well, yeah.
It could just be something you heard recently.
It's when people sort of say, "What's your favorite song or music or something?" It's like, I can't answer that because there's too many. I'm not like a one genre guy. I like everything from to classical to thrash metal to rap to I mean, I like a bit of trance dance, a bit of Ibiza chill vibes, it's all sorts of stuff. But I don't know, I'm actually listening, my audiobook right now is Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which I've just picked up. Because I realized at 50 years old, I've realized that the audiobook I listened to as a kid was heavily abridged, right? And then in my 30s, I found another audiobook which I thought wasn't abridged, which turns out it was just a bit less abridged. So I'm listening to it for the third time, like thinking, oh wow, right, this has got more in it as well. So like I'm picking up more. So it's just lovely because I'm getting extra stuff. But I mean, I love that.
Right.
I mean, I have read the books way back, but too long ago for me to remember the details much, So yeah, it's Hitchhiker's Guide right now.
Actually, I read that one on audiobook as well, probably about 8 years back, but I wonder if it was abridged, so I might have to check it out again.
Mine seems to be a mix of Stephen Fry and Martin Freeman narrating, which are both doing a pretty good job, so I'm happy with that. I love Douglas Adams. He's great. One of my favorite quotes is Douglas Adams talking about deadlines. And he said that I love deadlines. I love the sound that they make as they whoosh by, and I thought that's very, very
Right.
witty. I was sad when he died. Yeah, but there you go. But yeah, on that
Yeah.
happy note, best leave it. Yeah, but no,
No, that's
I've
okay.
enjoyed this chat, Cobbs. I hope I not talked you out. I do tend to talk a little bit too much, I think. But I hope I've allowed
No,
you
that's all right.
space to chat.
Yeah, I mean, I was curious to hear your answers to all of those questions, so perfectly fine.
Cool. Well, good. Well, I mean, I'm hoping they'll be interesting to people. Yeah. Such as they are. Um, everyone's experience is different, but yeah, good luck to us all, eh?
Right, yeah. Yeah, and again, everybody, I have my own YouTube channel called Korbology. Maybe if you'd be interested in collaboration, we could do something on there sometime as well.
Yeah, check
But
it out
yeah.
because Corbs has got some cool little walkthroughs, step throughs. He's much better at editing than I am. So yeah, I'd recommend it. It's good. Lots of
Right.
talk about
Thank you.
what decisions he's made as he's gone through stuff. So yeah. So yeah, cool. Right. Well, we'll say goodbye to everybody, won't we? Goodbye.
Yeah. Have a good one, everybody. See ya.